everyone. This meeting is taking place via the Teams protocol. And if you could start the recording, please, Nadine.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, anybody that's not speaking, if you can mute your microphones and raise your electronic hand if you want to speak. And if you can't raise your electronic hand for any reason, you may use the chat facility, but that is the only reason for the chat, is that you're having technical problems. I don't want any debate going on in the chat at all. Our first thing on the agenda now, then I'll ask Nadine to take the roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Whitelock.
Present, thank you, Nadine.
Arthur Davis.
No.
Councillor Miller.
Present, Nadine.
Councillor Martin Davis.
Peters.
Martin Peters.
Oh, sorry. Martin Peters, sorry.
Yeah, present, Nadine.
Councillor Prothero.
Yeah, present, thanks, Nadine.
Councillor Nicola Davis.
Present, Nadine.
Councillor Mason.
Yeah, present, Nadine. I'm here.
Councillor Chris Jones.
Present, Nadine.
Councillor Hugh Jones. Councillor Hale. We've got apologies from Councillor Edwards, Councillor Freegard, Councillor Chris James and Councillor Jane Jones. We go on to officers now. Neil Chapper.
Present, Nadine.
Mike Shaw.
Yes, present, Nadine, thank you.
And then we got an applicant, Samantha Elgersmith.
Yes, I'm here, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's it, Chair.
Thank you, Nadine. Okay, then. We are, as I say, I remind you that we are running by the remote protocol. I'm going to ask members of the committee now if they have any interest to declare. Please do so if you have one by raising your electronic hand or items in the chat. I'll just give that a minute just to see if anybody has got any declarations of interest. No, no, I don't see any. Thank you, members. Okay, now I will assume that you've all read the papers today. We have two decision items today. The home boarding licence and, oh no, this is the street trading one, which is at ISO. The home boarding licence, item 4, and the street trading, which will be in private, item 7. Okay, so we'll go on to the first item of business today, which is the home boarding licence case number 1 on your pages 5 to 26 in your bundle. Mr. Chappell, if you could take the committee through your report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, this is an application, members, for a home boarding licence. The premises are located at Penna, Bryniau, Gwaengai, Gerwyn. The applicant is with us this morning.
Sorry, I'm being told I didn't do the minutes. I'll return to them. It's okay.
I'm happy for you to go back to them now, Chair, if you prefer.
Okay. Sorry, my apologies. The minutes are at item 3 of the previous meeting are on pages 3 to 4. May I ask for somebody to move they are a true record?
Move, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so we've ratified the minutes. I do apologise, Mr. Chappell. Please carry on.
Thank you, Chair. Let me just bring my notes back up. Okay, yeah, so this is agenda item 4, case 1. It's an application for a home boarding licence where the applicant has a resident child under the age of 10. This premises, members, is located at Penna, Bryniau, Gwaengai, Gerwyn. The applicant is present in the meeting today, Samantha Elgersma. Is that correct, Samantha?
Yes, that is, thanks.
Excellent. Members, usually you don't get these applications coming before you. There are officer delegations in place, which means that we can approve applications where there is a satisfactory veterinary report received.
Mhm.
And then that's all we do is ensure that the work identified is completed before the license is issued. Members' engagement isn't often required for these. However, it is required where there is a condition attached to the license which the applicant cannot comply with, which is the case in this particular instance today. So in October 2010, this authority adopted model license conditions for home boarding of dogs. These conditions were pretty much the same as the model license conditions published by LACORS. LACORS was if members remember it, was the local authority coordinators of regulatory services. That organisation was disbanded many years ago now. One difference between the two sets of model conditions was paragraph 5.83. Now, this paragraph dictates how old children must be at the premises, which is licensed to board dogs. The LACORS model condition sets this age at 5 years old. But when we adopted our conditions, we changed that and we set it at 10 years old. Now, going back through the old reports that I have here, I've had a look at the reason for us setting it at 10 years. And it was because we went out to consultation when adopting that particular policy. And the veterinary surgeon at the time submitted a consultation response to us. And his suggestion was that we should set the age at 10 years rather than the 5. There was no objections to that. There was no further discussions on it. And it subsequently went through that we adopted the conditions as 10 years. Members will note from the report that the council's current veterinary surgeon has not been consulted on this particular application, and her report, which is attached to Appendix 1, suggests that a risk-based assessment and familiarisation trials for her children are implemented at the premises as opposed to a minimum age requirement. Members will also note that we've done a little bit of ringing round some other authorities in Wales, and there are variations to this particular condition. Some have adopted the 5 years as a minimum. You'll note Conway in particular, they're utilising the risk-based criteria for separation of dogs and children under 5 years of age. I should add, in addition, there has been new regulations introduced in...
So, beg your pardon, sorry.
There's been new regulations introduced in England. These are the most up-to-date regulations concerning animal welfare licensing, and they've introduced regulations right the way across animal welfare licensing regime under the Animal Welfare Act. Their conditions, the mandatory minimum age limit for children at boarding establishments has been removed, and it's been replaced with a risk-based assessment for anyone under the age of 16. Early indications are in Wales that Wales will be adopting similar regulations in due course. Obviously, it's been given to the Welsh government. So when we have those regulations in place, it's likely at this stage that we will have something very similar to the English model. Members are being asked today to determine this application and consider whether it is appropriate to depart from the existing condition and replace with an alternative condition that would allow the application to proceed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chappell. Okay, for our visitor today, welcome, and I'll just run through now how the next part of this committee will proceed. There will be a series of statements made by varying people that I will call on in turn, and then there will be questions as well that will follow on from that. They will be in a set sort of order, which I'll be working through. So if at any time, Samantha, I beg your pardon, I've forgotten the surname, Elgersman. Samantha, Ms. Elginsman. If you have any questions, please just indicate that you're not following in it, or something is you want to ask a question on at any time. We don't want you to be confused at all in this process. Okay, so I'm going to call on, first of all, representatives of the licensing authority. Well, Mr. Chappell has just run through the report. Do you have any questions or any statements you want to add, Mr. Chappell?
Nothing for me at this time.
Okay, okay. Next on my list then is the applicant or applicant's representative. So are you going to speak on your behalf today, Ms. Elginson?
Yes, if that's possible, please.
Of course it is, yes. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I fully understand the point of having the regulations for children. I do absolutely support that. I do have young children. I'm not young myself. I'm 45, so I've been around for a while. My youngest is 7.5, and my oldest is almost 10. But I've been a veterinary nurse for the last 20 years. And I've been in the industry, and every day of my life I would be coming up to terms with dogs, and I would have to assess them to see whether they were safe to be in my consultation room. And also I have also spent the last 10-15 years training veterinary nurses students. So I would have a veterinary nursery student in my consultation room or in my facilities in the prep room, and I would not want them to have any harm to them. So I would always be on the guard and on the watch to see whether I would have an issue with a dog when I was with my students, because obviously my students would be the uttermost protection. So I've had plenty of experience in my work and my job to be able to monitor a situation and judge. And yes, we have brilliant protocols at work for risk assessments that we listen to and also update on a regular basis. And so I've also done my risk assessments for work for the home environment, so I can make sure that my children are obviously going to be safe under this situation as well.
Okay. Is that it for now? You'll have another opportunity, but is that it for now?
I think so, yes.
Okay. And then we'll move on to any statutory body. So I don't, Mr. Shaw, our legal rep.
Thank you. Yes, good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of questions to you, Mrs. Ergudson, if I may, please. You've had the benefit of the veterinary report, which has been produced for the committee to determine your application.
Yeah.
Might I check, would you be happy if members were minded to grant your application to the risk assessment being undertaken, but also for the trial which is referred to by the veterinary report?
Yes.
Indeed. So you would be happy to do those things,
yes,
if members were minded to grant this application?
Do you mean the trial assessment where the dog's coming in on a temporary basis to assess the situation? Yes.
Indeed, madam.
I have a protocol in place for exactly that. It's in my protocol file where dogs come to me for temporary assessment. It's a mutual thing between clients dropping their dogs off, and obviously my household as well. Not all dogs are going to be suited for the environment, and so therefore they obviously need to be able to know that their dog's going to be happy in my environment, and I also need to know that I'm going to be happy with their dog on my sofa.
Okay.
So I have a protocol in place for that.
All right, madam. Well, as I say, if members were minded to grant this application, would you be agreeable to a condition being imposed regarding the risk assessment and the trial period?
Sure, I think that's the best way forward.
Thank you. And madam, one final question. My understanding from reading the report was that it was just one child who was under 10, but did you say that both children are under 10?
Eric, my oldest, is 10 3/4. He'll be 9 3/4. He'll be 10 in December. My youngest is just 7.5.
Okay, thank you. And my final question, madam, if I may, please, with members' indulgence, is this. You understand, of course, the principles behind this particular licensing application. The principles as far as this application are concerned is that any child or person within the house is as safe as they reasonably can be. So that's the backdrop against which your application will be judged.
Yes, I get that, absolutely.
Okay, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shaw, for those questions. Any objector? I don't believe we have any objectors today. Okay. So I'm going to ask now if any members of the committee have any questions that they wish to ask the applicant, first of all. No? I have just one question, Ms. Agasna. If you, how are you going to, I understand you are the expert, you know all about the dogs and how to treat them, that type of thing, but your children obviously are not experts.
No.
How are you going to educate the children to the protocols that you are going to have to impose in your household?
Because we also live in a small holding environment, so we're not completely and utterly devoid of animals. So we have regular sheep, cows, horses, plus all the other animals as well in the area, and they have grown up since birth around these animals on the farm. And so they are fully aware that animals are dangerous and they need to stay. We've always had protocols as they've been growing up as well about not to go into certain fields or not go into certain areas. So I think this is just going to be a step up of what they're already used to.
I get what you're saying. However, these animals are going to be in their own home, aren't they?
Yes.
And I do believe you said in the report that there are cats present as well.
Yes, there are cats that come and go from the back area of the house. The house is set up in a way that it's a little cottage. There's lots of little rooms. There are also little pockets of areas which children and family can be, and obviously very separate areas around the back. I have a floor plan that I wanted to send to you guys. So there are separate areas in which the dogs can be housed away from technically children who would probably live in different areas of the house. But as I said, if there was an assessment going on with a dog that's coming to board and I wasn't 100% comfortable with this dog, I wouldn't board it. I don't need to have dangerous dogs or unpredictable dogs in my house. My way that I want to do it is not so much of just any old dog. I want to focus on the sick and the elderly that need a little bit more care. So I have set up a facility where there will be sort of more of an area for a nursing establishment, basically. So I'll have an area in which to look after them there. And yes, they can have a sofa in there and have their own life in there, but they're not going to be just the wild puppies that are coming to stay that want to run around and be hooligans. I'll probably be looking after sort of the elderly and frail a bit more, if that's my plan.
And just to follow on from that, from what you've just said about the type of dog, if an animal is elderly, is sick,
yes,
would you expect them to behave as per normal?
No, but I also don't need to have my children in the room when I'm looking after the animals. They can be separate. I have separate areas. I also have facilities on a higher level, so they don't need to be in that particular area at the time I'm looking after them.
Okay, well, thank you for answering my questions there. Anybody else have any questions? Questions from anybody? No, can't see any. No. Councillor Miller? Oh, and Mr. Chappell. Right, so Councillor Miller first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is to Mr. Chappell, actually.
Okay.
Can you tell me if this policy has been reviewed since adoption at all?
It hasn't, no.
And how often would we normally review a policy?
They vary. There hasn't been any, like if you're looking at the taxi policy that's reviewed every year, Licensing Act every 5 years, gambling every 3 years. This particular policy has been in place since 2010. It hasn't been reviewed. However, we are very aware that there has been an ongoing push for new legislation in Wales. So we're very much dictated what that's going to say. So what we don't want to do at this stage is change the policy now and then have to perhaps change it again when we get new legislation. It's in an advanced stage. There's lots of consultation going on across Wales about animal legislation in Wales, and it's just a matter of time until we get that.
Thank you, Chair.
Happy with that, Councillor Miller?
Mm.
Yes, yes. Okay, that'll do. Okay. Nobody else has any questions at this time? Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. Sorry, one final question to you, Madam. If you did get the licence granted to you, would you be able to confirm to members that the dogs won't be unsupervised at any time when you have them in the house?
Yes, I can confirm that. I'm not in a current job at the moment, so this would be my life. So I would be here to look after the animals the whole time. I'm also very lucky that I have a husband that also works from home, so there would be no point at which either of us would be out together at the same time. That's not what we want to do. That's not our lives at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Chappell?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The only question I was going to ask to the applicant is the points and the conclusion of the veterinary report. There's 7 points there. Can I just confirm that those have now been completed?
Yes.
What page are we on, Mr. Chappell?
It's on page 12 of the report.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yes, I can see now, yes.
I have my liability insurance. Yes, I have that in place. Kath was able to see that at the times. Disposable of waste. Yes, I'm able to just do that. I have my clinical waste and my chemical, my tiger bags available. My garden was the biggest problem I needed to do because I needed to take off some barbed wire, which has been done, and I had to fix the fencing at the back, and that has been done. So I've put basically a new fence down the back, down the side there where there was a gap. So that's been sorted out. My risk assessments I have that are all here, including the risk assessments to children. I've added things over the weekend like avoidance of raw diets. I don't need to have the raw diets issue in my house, so I'm going to keep the kids very safe, making sure there's no contamination going on there. Registration documents I've done as well, and details of the emergency contact to be given to the authority. So I'm going to have to get that one sorted as well. Details of the emergency contact needed to give to the authority. Yes.
That's pretty comprehensive, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Shaw, that was a legacy hand there, was it? Yeah, okay. And I do make the point here that I understand these are your own children. So yes, there is also that added care. I'm not saying that you would be reckless with anybody else's children, but of course, when they are your own children, we have to take the view that you will do everything in your power to make sure that they are kept safe and well at all times when these animals are here. I understand that they don't sleep outside. These are day boarding.
It's day boarding, yes.
Day boarding.
It's on, yes. We don't have a kennel facility outside, no.
No. So if all animals will go home. So what would happen then if an emergency happened at one of your one of the people said that, oh look, I'm sorry, I'm in A&E and I can't make it back to pick up the animal. What would happen then?
It is going to be a home boarding, as far as I was aware. It was an overnight license as well.
Oh, I see. And that's what Neil is just put in now. Yeah. Okay.
It's all included. If you have any animals for whatever amount of time, they all have to have this one license, depending whether they go home at the end of the day or not.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I take that on board. I just wanted to make the distinction if something doesn't run to plan, that there are safeguards, and you've thought about that. Yep. Yes. Okay. No problem with that then. Anybody else wishing to make any questions? No. Okay. Is the chair, I'm going to ask for summing up from Mr. Chappell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I haven't got much to sum up really. Obviously, this application has come in. The question that members are being asked today is to consider this application in light of this particular condition. So this particular condition at the moment would prevent the applicant from proceeding with the application until her youngest child reached the age of 10. So what we're looking at doing today is on just this one occasion, looking at amending that condition to an appropriate wording condition that would allow the application to proceed. And it looks as if that the preference would be, along with what our veterinary surgeon has said, risk-based assessment with the familiarisation trial periods for the dogs and the applicant's children. I think the policy itself, yes, it probably does need to be reviewed. But at this stage, I wouldn't be looking to bring forward a new report to change it in its entirety until we have further clarification on the direction of travel from Welsh Government about new legislation in Wales.
Yeah, which I can completely understand there, Mr. Chappell. Okay, any other person wishes to sum up? Objector, we have no objector. Statutory body, you haven't got anything, remarks? No, that's fine. Okay, so I will go back to the applicant now then and give you a last opportunity to address committee and plead your case.
I just want to say thank you for your time, people, to spend time to come and listen to my case. That's fantastic. Thank you. I hope I have been able to present my case enough. It's really, COVID changed everything for everybody, I'm sure. So, and I was in the veterinary industry for 20 plus years, but having my children has made me realise that I want to spend also more time with them. And I think I'm going to be able to tailor my expertise and my years of experience into looking after the probably slightly more dependent animals when people go away. I think I'll be my niche that I'd like to be able to get into. My kids are very responsible, so hopefully I think the best way forward is definitely risk assessment. I've done risk assessments for many years and I think that's definitely worth power behind it. So I'm going to keep looking at my risk assessments on a regular basis, make sure they're up to date, and hopefully that will be able to bring my licence. Thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you for coming and making it so eloquently. Now, what's going to happen now is that the recording will cease and the committee will step back to make their deliberations on this. We will be left just with the voting members of the committee and our legal representative. And then when we've made our decision, I'm sure that Mr. Chappell will notify you or make arrangements as to how you will get the result of this. But we don't actually reconvene, so to speak, to give you, I don't know if she's going to wait. Do you know how you're going to address this, Mr. Chappell?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Once we finish with the committee procedures today, I'll contact the applicant and
okay then, Ms. Elgersman, thank you very much for attending this morning. So if I could ask everybody, apart from the voting members and Mr. Shaw, to now leave the meeting, and of course Mr. Chappell will be calling you back in at the next item.
Thank you, Chair.
Goodbye.